It's always great to have a U.S. Senator join the broadcast, but especially great when they can join us in studio for the next two segments of the broadcast. And we've got U.S. Senator Roger Marshall with us, or Doc Marshall, as you like to be called, from Kansas, who was a former congressman, now in the U.S. Senate, and captain in the Army Reserves. And I think what's great, because we, of course, the ACLJ, the issue of life is so important to us. I actually wanted to start right there because you spent 25 years as an OBGYN. You delivered more than 5,000 babies. It's always a very, and you've seen it in Kansas too at the state level. We saw after the overturning of Roe versus Wade. There's a lot of education that needs to be done now. And I don't think it's people a lot of people are seeing ads and they are getting scared, so they vote in a way they may not understand who they're voting for. And what we all realize too in the pro-life movement is, yes, overturning Roe was a great victory, but there's a lot of education that we need to do, not just from the legal side, but also from the medical side, about amendments that we want to put through and restrictions that we want to put through. And this is not about criminalizing women or criminalizing IVF and things like that we've seen in the ads. But you could be the strong voices on that. You are those strong voices. I remember the pro-life caucus. How difficult is it for you as a doctor, as someone who did this, you sit there and you hear from the other side who doesn't have that training, just spewing off rhetoric when you've actually delivered, over 5,000 children?
Yeah, Jordan, it's hard, and certainly they can argue with us on statistics and the law, but what they cannot argue about is my personal experiences, where I've been in the room taking care of a person that was giving an abortion pills. I, of course, never did an abortion, never gave abortion pills, but had to take care of the people with the complications from it. Yeah. And these patients are told that, look, you may bleed for 30 minutes, have a little cramping, and 3 days later, they're still bleeding and cramping and having pain, and they were told to go at home, but they end up in our emergency room and we take care of them. Yep. And this administration, that's a great example, when their mantra is just pushing out this abortion pill, just like candy, but it has huge potential side effects, including the potential for fetal malformations.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example right there, because people always say over time, oh, it's so safe, it's so easy. They use COVID. They use these different excuses and reasons why to go around the regular procedures and say, you don't need to take this under the care of a medical facility anymore. Just do it at home. And we've said from the beginning, this is not how this was intended to be used. Even if you think this is okay, take out the abortion issue. This could harm women. This could kill women.
Yeah, so I'm convinced this is why HHS Secretary Becerra got selected, was how he circumvented the law to get this abortion pill out through the mail without a doctor examining a patient, which I think is malpractice. The centerpiece of the malpractice is over the phone, they're telling a doctor how far along they might be. And again, took care of 30 pregnant women every day. Their first visit, on average, they're off about 4 to 6 weeks on how far along they are. This pill was approved by the FDA, I think, for under 9 weeks. You give it at 13, 14 weeks, a whole set of different complications happen.
Yeah, so I mean, just bringing that kind of expertise to the issue, we need it. It's great to have that voice. So it's great to have people like you step up with those careers and say, you know what, I can add this voice to the public, whether it's in the House and now in the U.S. Senate. But you're also on the Homeland Security Committee, and I want to go to the Middle East because we have an office in Israel. We at the ACLJ, it's actually ACLJ Jerusalem. We're representing some of the families who still have hostages that are alive or that we hope are alive, and we've also represented families who we know now that are hostages who were killed, and a few who have been returned. You've introduced a standalone aid to Israel bill 4 times in the U.S. Senate, and it gets shot down by the Democrats each time. I've even talked to friends on the other side of the aisle who are Democrats but pro-Israel, and who are just, and I say, what's going on here? Like, why can't you guys get this done? It's what is the problem? Why does the left feel like they just can't go out and support Israel anymore directly?
Bingo. So Israel divides the Democrat caucus now. I didn't realize that. I'm not a politician. I assumed that this is a bipartisan issue, but
we're always told that.
But it's now become the colors are being shown now that this is a partisan issue right now. So you have Chuck Schumer going to a pro-Israel rally down in the Nation's Mall at 2:30 in the afternoon, saying he won't sleep until Israel gets his aid. We were able to form a little parliamentary maneuver and forced a vote at about 6 p.m. And not only did he vote against the standalone standalone funding for Israel. He got every member of the Democrat Party to vote against standalone funding. So we've got them on record now. And it's even a pro-Palestinian party now, what the Democrat Party has become. And I did not realize that.
No, I think even my friend, I'm not going to name, on the other side of the aisle in the House is just shocked by this, just how difficult it is, because everybody, they go to all this pro-Israel events, but there are more of the pro-Palestinian side is much more emboldened now, not just to say, hey, we should be more fair, more equal, or look at these issues, and we need to figure out, the human rights issues, but actually look, it's like, it almost feels like they are supporting Hamas. I mean, they are justifying the actions that were taken on October 7th. Like they somehow were justified in this horrendous attack on Israel and the Jewish state, which includes Americans and people from all over the world who were killed and taken hostage because of, again, information. And we see American young people, we see it in the streets yesterday, protest. And then we hear from our own State Department that they are considering trying to unilaterally or with the UK recognize a Palestinian state within a year.
Jordan, I don't know how to respond to all that. I can just tell you this. For me, this is a spiritual and a personal issue to me. That since as early as I can remember, we were taught in Sunday school to support Israel. My mom and dad taught me to support Israel. We were raised on Judeo-Christian values. That's what this nation was founded upon. It was the first primers for the founding fathers. And now this country is leaving that the left has become this group of people who believe that they are God, that they know, that they understand science better than you and I do. They understand what's best for your children. They want to do things to our children that without even our approval. So that's just who they've now become. And now they recognize this group of murderers, slaughterers, as something that deserves any type of recognition, rather than calling them out exactly for what they are and then ignoring the head of the snake, which is Iran.
I mean, I wanted to go right to Iran on this issue because we know, again, Hamas 15 years ago was not the Hamas of October 7th. It was not a good group. It was a terror group. They would still lie. I was there once when finally Israel, because of the amount of rocket fire that was coming in, and most of it was getting shot down by the Iron Dome, but that was the early days of the Iron Dome, and Operation Cast Lead was launched, but it was a different Hamas, not in the style so much of ISIS that they kind of displayed themselves to be, because they weren't receiving as much financial support from Iran, like we just talked about, and you just mentioned. We now also have seen our own service members killed, and we're told we're going to get a response. We're told the response could be, in Syria, and it could be in Iraq, but it'll be against, Iranians there. So we're telegraphing, I guess, to any Iranian, Revolutionary Guard generals, don't be in Iraq, don't be in Syria. But what do you feel about, I know that people, no one wants to go to a full-scale war with Iran. I don't think that anybody in the country's wants to just jump to do that without really thinking through, but we've got to be able to respond to this a little bit quicker, it seems like especially if there's going to be this many drones fired at our troops who are, in the Red Sea or at these bases that we sometimes don't even really know about or think about, as these three were in Jordan, that, if there's hundreds of drones being fired at these suicide drones and missiles that occasionally, our defense systems are going to let one through and people are going to get injured and killed. And we have to respond in a way that Iran respects.
So Joe Biden has given us war through weakness. An old physician told me once a doctor loses their reputation, you never get it back. Joe Biden's lost his reputation. The enemies don't respect him, let alone fear him. Jordan, we need a three-pronged response to this. We need a military response, economic, diplomatic. The diplomatic is easier. We need to go back and finish out the Abraham Accords. Probably another topic for another subject, but how that indirectly puts so much pressure on Iran. Military response, very simple. Remember what President Reagan did in 1988 in response to a similar action. He bombed the heck out of their oil platform, sunk 3 of their warships. We need to do something like that militarily. Iran recently launched 3 satellites, military satellites. Let's take out those satellites. Then we need cooperation from our friends. We need to be shutting down the airspace. Saudi needs to shut down their airspace to Iran. A whole lot of things economically. This president has done a fraction of what we could do economically to them. And again, we need to get our allies to put pressure. We should talk about the ghost ships if we get a chance. The Ghost Fleet.
Yeah, tell me about the Ghost ships. We were just mentioning that. I want to get to the border, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, so briefly, Iran has a ghost fleet of some 500 ships that they're flagging with foreign countries' flags and using that to smuggle oil, not smuggle, just run it right in front of us over to China. So we need to stop those shipments of oil, strangle their economy, and then hold those other countries accountable too.
It seems to me on that issue about holding those other countries accountable, they've totally ignored these international sanctions that have been in place. They didn't do that before, or they weren't so bold at least. Right. But it seems like now that China and Russia, like you said, it's clear that these ships are their ships, and they do it, and we don't really do anything in response.
It is that simple. Banking sanctions would be another example that, again, let's not go after just Iran, but if you do business with Iran, we're shutting you down. That we have levers. We have had incredible economic levers here that we're not using.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the border as well, because this is one I'm sure, again, as a doctor, the issues that have hit America, and I know a lot of our listeners, even in my own family, the fentanyl issue, and even inside our organization, the amount of Americans that this is now the number one killer of Americans between the ages of 18 to 45. The majority of it, again, I guess the chemicals are being put together in China, and then it's being smuggled across primarily the southern border. If you even taking out the illegal immigrants, just that alone, just the fentanyl alone is a number one killer. You think that would be enough to galvanize Congress and galvanize Democrats, but it's not.
It's not. I don't know how our president sleeps at night knowing that 300 Americans died today. 300 Americans died today from fentanyl poisoning. 100,000 last year. Every year we lose more young Americans to fentanyl poisoning than we did all of Vietnam. But yet our president and our secretary of DHS unwilling to secure the border. We're losing a Kansan every day. And now we've emboldened the cartel. The cartel is set up even across the state like Kansas, all across the state now. And they're pushing what we're seeing an explosion of now is the human trafficking. The sex trafficking is now rearing its head.
Yeah, to go to the human side as well of who's being trafficked. So you've got the drugs that affect us, but then you also have these bad actors saying, well, if we get the drugs across, there's the human trafficking. And of course, we have finally seen major cities where there are Democrats leaderships say, like, this is going out of control. Yeah, the mayor of New York say this could destroy us, but they opened themselves up as sanctuary cities, and they ended up being the place where these people go. We've seen even the violence yesterday. Of illegal immigrants who attacked police and were let right out of after arrest with no bail. I mean, and their actions in the street. It just seems like it's lawlessness, and it's no joke. I mean, it's happening in all of our cities, and like you said, whether it's the fentanyl affecting your a small town or a big city, or the immigrants and the illegal immigration overrunning. The hospitals or the schools, these don't have to be partisan issues. These should be human issues.
Yeah, Jordan, John Adams, second president of the United States, said that the Constitution was written for a moral and religious people. And I would contend if we don't have respect for the law, that's the true threat to democracy. And this president has created this culture of lawlessness, from an open border to cashless bail to defunding the police. And we just see this over and over every day. So now it's an entire culture of lawlessness, and it all started there at the southern border.
Yeah, and we see the evidence. So the other side sees the evidence. They just, again, is it still, it seems to be hard for him to still make the argument that it used to be like, well, that we used to, maybe they'd say it publicly, but, we think eventually these illegal voters will become U.S. citizens and voters, and so we want to be the party that does that. So keep letting people in. But now with the out of control nature of this and the millions of people, the terrorists that are utilizing it. This is not all. We're not talking about all Hispanics here. We're talking the cartels, the fact that Americans are dying because of the drugs that are coming across, and yet still, I mean. Do you see any hope for bipartisan solution, or do we have to have just major changes in our elections and more victories in our elections?
Yeah, Jordan, I think that no matter what Congress does right now, what really matters is who is in the White House. Obviously, one president could close the border, average under 1,000 people crossing a border today. Another president, the same set of laws, has 10,000 people. That not only is Joe Biden willing to ignore the law, he's inviting people. He's doing everything in his power to bring these people across the border. That this is his mantra. He doesn't want to solve the problem, but Americans need to not let the left fool us here. This responsibility is on Joe Biden. No matter what happens, he could have secured the border yesterday. Don't let the media spin this here on folks over this next week or two.
When you are in Kansas and you're talking to voters there, and as they're starting to think about this election, they've got the presidential primary going on. What is because we've seen inflation, then we've seen immigration kind of go back and forth, but basically issues that are all kind of connected to economics and security, like security at home, whether it's the drugs or immigration, and also financial security. Are those the issues that you hear about when you go home?
I'm going to give you a couple examples. So over the last 2 weeks, we've done some telephone town halls. 4,000 senior citizens in one town hall. Another group had 4,000 young adults. Both of them, their number one concern is the open southern border, safety and security. But get this, number two for both groups is a threat to their constitutional rights. And then number three is now the economy and inflation. And I think the difference is between concerned versus worried about. What keeps you up at night? Yeah. Your economic situation, I think most Americans say, I'll deal with this inflation, I'll get another job, I'm going to make a change. But these other two issues, oh my gosh, they feel helpless and out of control when it comes to this open border and this just non-relenting attack on our constitutional rights by Joe Biden and the White House. Yeah,
it does. It seems to, I think this 14th Amendment case that's at the Supreme Court, it's, again, nothing shocking anymore. It's like the Palestinian state movement. That they're actually, it gets reported yesterday, but then the State Department spokesperson, he goes up there today and said, yeah, absolutely right. We're working on it. We're trying to get this done. And you're like, of all times to say that, of all times to announce that, it seems like this would be the worst time. But they have no problem because they feel like they've got to play some politics with it because they might be losing some younger voters because they don't think that Joe Biden's tough enough on Israel. So that they want to now sound that they are working on this Palestinian state. But yet, and if you play politics with every one of these issues too, we're not going to get anywhere. But I do think there's hope. ACLJ, a final question for you, and got a minute left here. We exist as a legal and policy organization because we believe it's worth fighting. And you're a U.S. senator, and you were a doctor before that. You in the House because you believe it's worth fighting too.
Absolutely. So we are the patriots, modern day patriots out here. And that's what we're asking people to do is stand up and be a patriot. Run for school board. Let's encourage young kids to go into teaching. Let's do all those little things as well. But we need to fight every fight from our freedom of speech, freedom of religion, sanctity of life, protecting the Second Amendment. All those are at risk right now at the White House.
Senator Marshall, it's great to have you in the studio with us. Thanks for being with us.
Enjoyed it.